funny. That's so ridiculous. Imagine if your body were that stupid. Like I stub my toe and 20 minutes later I'm like, ow, ow, ow. Or I go, oh my God, I'm tired. I hope I slept 4 hours ago. Oh, I'm frisky. I hope I had sex yesterday. I mean, it's just insane to think that such a miraculous organism, which is the human body. I mean, we could marvel at the human body every single second of every single minute of our entire lives and never be satisfied in understanding it. To think something so amazing is that dumb that it's like, oh boy, it takes 20 minutes to figure out that there's something in my stomach. No, the reason people say that is because they're not beating the crap out of their carbohydrates. They're not breaking food down into glucose. The glucose is not getting to their brain, so they're not registering actual satisfaction. Actual satisfaction does not happen in the stomach. It happens in the brain. You know this if you've ever been on an IV, if you've ever had 3 scotches at night on an empty stomach. You don't sit around going, boy, I'm drunk, but boy, I'm hungry. You feel satisfied because there's sugar in your brain. So complex carbohydrates are these long chains of starches. And by applying our digestive enzyme amylase, they break down into maltose. Now maltose is a form of sugar. Then that sugar goes to our brain and we feel satisfied. Now, your brain needs more sugar than any other organ in your body. So if you're not breaking down the complex carbohydrates, A, you're not going to feel satisfied. B, you're going to overeat because the brain will continually signal to you that you need more until it has enough glucose. Happy brain. Another happy brain, a creative brain. Come on. Okay. I just want to give you some background here because chewing is more than satisfaction. I just wanted to sketch out what we're talking about at first, which is feeling satisfied. One of the problems that we have with the planet, one of the reasons we are in the pickle that we are in, is that we suffer from chronic dissatisfaction. And what I'm trying to say today is part of our dissatisfaction, my car's not nice enough. My house isn't big enough. My spouse isn't good enough for me. I don't make enough money. One of the reasons we suffer from chronic dissatisfaction is because we are in a chronic state of low blood sugar. And one of the reasons we're in a chronic state of low blood sugar is that we don't beat the crap out of complex carbohydrates, convert them into glucose, and let them go to our brains. I want to suggest chewing to you today, and I'll give you very practical tips about it, because after you chew a complex carbohydrate 50 to 100 times, and I know that's ridiculous, but I want you to try it. After you chew a complex carbohydrate 50 to 100 times, you will feel like you've meditated for an hour. You will feel like your house is big enough. You will feel like your car's okay. You will feel like your spouse is not such a jerk. Sorry, spouses. Everyone's like, which spouse, him or her? But this thing goes back. We need it now more than ever because we're abusing the planet out of our chronic dissatisfaction. What's one of the reasons? And by being satisfied personally, we will abuse our environments less. Oh boy. But this idea did not begin with me. Anyone here ever heard of Horace Fletcher? Can somebody pick that up? Thank you. Anyone heard of Horace Fletcher? Someone has. Horace Fletcher lived from 1849 to 1919. He was known as the Great Masticator. Horace Fletcher was into chewing. In fact, during this time, and the chewing, his fad, called Fletcherizing, was at its peak right around World War I, where he actually influenced the Belgian troops to chew better. He hung out with Mark Twain, with the Rockefellers. I mean, he knew some movers and shakers of the time. This fad, Fletcherizing, existed right before calorie counting. It was big. It's one of the reasons your great-grandmother always said, chew your food. Horace Fletcher said, nature will castigate those who don't masticate. Horace Fletcher had a really interesting idea that I want to throw at you today, which was this 3 inches of our bodies, meaning from the back of the throat to the front of the mouth, he called it the 3 inches of personal responsibility. Think about it. You have no control over your digestive process once food has left your mouth. No control at all. And in fact, we register all sorts of discomforts along the way. You can have GERD, you can have an ulcer, you can have chronic gas, you can have, all sorts of elimination discomforts. But one of the reasons we have all of those problems is that we haven't done our work here. We haven't actually begun the digestive process where it's meant to begin and applied the incredible, both powerful and voluminous amounts of digestive enzyme where it's supposed to be applied, which is in the mouth. Nor have we beaten the crap out of the complex carbohydrates. So if you had a business and the business kind of ran itself, but there was one area of the business that you could control, would you not control it? And if by controlling that part of the business, the profits tripled, would you not take part in the process? And yet we have completely forgotten it. In fact, there was a great book called Gulp by a woman named Mary Roach. She's an investigative journalist, and it was called Gulp Travels Down the Alimentary Canal. And she talked all about everything from your teeth, digestive enzymes, your tongue, your throat, your everything, all the way to elimination. Great book. However, Mary Roach talks about Horace Fletcher, and she makes fun of him. And she's like, oh man, there was this thing in the early 20th century, this guy Fletcher who said we should chew 32 times a mouthful, blah, 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 blah. And clearly she never did it. And I was so angry reading it, because it was like, Mary Roach, you have a mouth. You have teeth. You have digestive enzymes. You have a 3 inches of personal responsibility, and you're an investigative journalist, and you're not going to try this out? Because I've never met anybody who doesn't chew the way that I'm going to suggest to you today for a meal or a day or a week who doesn't see what I'm talking about, who doesn't go through the eye of this needle. All right. He suggested that we chew every bite 32 times. That corresponded with the number of teeth that we have. That was sort of Horace Fletcher's just cute number that he decided upon. Some people decide to chew for a full minute every mouthful. And by the way, I'm not suggesting you do this every meal of your life. That's too much. I just want to suggest that you acquaint yourself with the 3 inches of personal responsibility. See what shifts it makes for you, and then decide when you want to apply it. He wrote a book called Fletcherism, or How I Became Young at 60. It's a great book. He's a pretty inspiring guy. His Fletcherizing was the biggest food fad until calorie counting began and basically eclipsed it. All right, welcome to your mouth. Amazing, you use it every day. You use it all day, every day, and we don't know that much about it, but get on board. First of all, you have molars for chewing. We all know that. We don't use them much, but they're there. But having made the decision that you've made to be either vegetarian or vegan, it's really, really important that you start to understand the digestion of complex carbohydrates. If you don't, you will feel chronically dissatisfied, you will overeat, and you won't be the shining beacon of plant-based joy that you want to present to your friends. And you will also lack energy. Come on. Three things are going to come up. Okay, you have two types of saliva in your mouth: stimulated saliva and unstimulated saliva. So as I say to you now, I'd like you to imagine that you're sucking on a lemon. What happens in your mouth? Stimulated saliva comes from the parotid gland. That's stimulated saliva. It's the saliva that you generate for eating. Unstimulated saliva is this viscous, sticky coating all over your mouth and all over your teeth that is there all the time. Stimulated saliva makes up 70 to 90% of all the saliva generated in a day. You generate 2 to 3 pints of saliva a day. That's so gross. And yet we don't use it. We don't think of it as a thing that's there to do something. But today, you have stumbled into this lecture, and I'm going to give you a life-changing set of suggestions. I've done this lecture many times, and on the vegan cruise that goes out of Miami next week, many times. And one guy, this German guy, came up to me 2 years ago, and he stood stock straight with these glassy eyes, and he said, "I went to your chewing lecture last year, and I've been chewing for a year." He was so peaceful and so calm. He's like, "It is so great. It has changed my life completely." Oh, shoot. In Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, your stimulated saliva is referred to as the jade juice. And we know how much the Chinese like jade. It nourishes qi and, quote, puts a man beyond reach of calamities. Puts the man beyond reach of calamities. That's a ridiculous statement. But I tell you, after you learn to chew 50 to 100 times a mouthful, when you choose to, a complex carbohydrate, you will see that your body, nourished simply by energized liquid, because by the time you swallow, it is liquid, you become totally smooth and coordinated, and you won't be bumping